if I've given you even one tidbit of advice, I am delighted because we are all entitled to a healthy, happy, peaceful life. So the next time something enters your mind, if you can just step back, if it's something that is not empowering, see if you can observe it, look at it, rather than absorb it. Because we can't stop the chaos, that happens, in family dynamics and things like that. But if we can step back and say, I'm not going to absorb this negativity, it's not good for my health, it's not good for my well being. You might have to even set boundaries. I had to set boundaries with my family and friends. They remembered the Dawn Westmoreland that was strong, always the rock, the person always available to talk to consult with, to give advice, professional advice with the work I do. And a lot of my family members did not like that. They didn't like that now I was, hate the word disabled, but, I definitely had ability problems, okay? It definitely affected my life. So I had to set boundaries. I had to start saying no, no, no. Even as I was getting better, it was just too much. It was stressing me out trying to manage my life, manage my family's life, manage my, just moving ahead. When I started doing that, setting boundaries, my life changed. And I also, I'm not going to pull any punches. I stopped watching news a long time ago. I can't deal with negativity. It's not that I want to look through rose-colored glasses, but I want to focus on the good, not the bad. So I'll leave this with you. Every single day, we get to choose to be empowered or disempowered. And I hope that you choose empowerment because, again, you deserve to be happy, loved, appreciated, valid, and to be successful. Successful in your personal life, your business life, and all. So I wish you all the very best. I'm signing off. I'm Dawn Westmoreland.
All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at in the world at this point in time. Hello, everybody. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. So if you can, just put your hands in the air, like you don't care. All right. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. So at least I know I'm audible. All right. Again, good day. My name is Mark Katz. I'm actually a HR and sales consultant. I've been working with Catherine. I've been privileged enough to come and talk to everyone here and on the World Wide Web about looking at taking sidekicks to superheroes. And my personal life, this has actually played an extremely impactful event and has really reshaped. And my personal life, this has actually played an extremely impactful event that has really reshaped. Look at sidekicks and superheroes and what, as a society, we are doing today to really impact neurodiversity in the workforce through a personal perspective. And by the way, I hope everybody likes superheroes because we're going to run with that theme. All right. Most people today in our society fail to look at neurodivergence as having a superpower. The superpower is really their abilities to add to the community they're in special and unique ways that we typically in the world of work and workforce don't consider. So we have to really look at, by definition, what is normal. And I hate reading from a screen, but I'm going to read this off so everybody's aware. Normal in society is often defined as a behavior that is typical and conforms to societal expectations within a specific cultural context. In essence, we do what everybody else is doing to fit into that group. But what happens if we don't fit in? How does the world perceive us? So let's take a look at that and see, by doing a quick little quiz, I want everybody here to answer these questions yourself and see really where you fit in the world of normal. How many people in this room today avoid eye contact with others when they're talking? Shy, withdrawn, whatever it may be. How many of you may be unaware of your surroundings in the event that you're in? And in this type of environment, I can see where everybody's really unaware of their surroundings. How many times do you feel like you have feelings or emotions that are really different than what's expected of somebody else? Maybe you're a little more apathetic. Maybe you're not as sensitive to the topic at hand. The big one here that I like to look at is, do you keep Lucky Charms, like a piece of string, a square from breakup blanket from your childhood, a memento from one of your children that has stuck with you for years, like I keep with me all the time? Are you prone to talk excessively? Catherine has known me for a number of months now and can tell you that I actually talk quite excessively. How many of you in this room today have squirrel syndrome? How many of you see a shiny object and move to that shiny object just quick by that distraction? What about forgetfulness? Do any of us experience forgetfulness? Find yourself fidgeting like I'm doing at the moment because I'm quite nervous about speaking to all of you. What about impulsive? We can't hold back from the current situation and we have to act on the emotion instead of on the logical thought process. So with all those questions in mind, how many people in this room would consider themselves normal? If you answered yes to any of those questions, we fit outside the societal norm. So these are things that myself and my wife actually started looking at when we became parents. A quick synopsis on that. We were told we weren't able to have children, so my wife and I decided the best way to approach this would be to adopt. So my wife and I adopted our oldest two children. And within a matter of about a week, we were told that our children were diagnosed on the spectrum, had ADD, ADHD, PTSD, auditory processing disorder, visual impairment, and we should not expect anything great from them because of all these inhibitors in their life. We should look at ways to just accept who they are at the moment and not expect any growth. Well, in looking at my kids, I couldn't do that as a father, as a parent, and as a human being. My kids deserve so much more. So my wife and I started doing a little research, and this is some of the things that we learned. All right, let's talk about this gentleman who really was probably one of my favorites to start this process off. In doing the research, my wife and I learned about Sir Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins has won 2 Academy Awards. You may have seen him in things like Silence of the Lambs, Legends of the Fall, Amistad, Meet Joe Black, Westworld. Great, phenomenal actor. Then we need to look at Simone Biles. Simone Biles is the most decorated gymnast in the world today. Simone Biles has won 7 gold medals, 2 silver, 2 bronze, and holds the title to 30 world championships. Elon Musk may be a favorite, may not. The gentleman owns and works at SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, X, created PayPal, OpenAI, 6 other companies, but my favorite one, Boring.com. I just love the title. Gotta love the name Boring. Besides, they're the ones who created the flamethrower, for retail and home use. Daryl Hannah, one of my favorite actresses in the world today. Oh, I think I lost my sound. Okay, there I am. All right, Daryl Hannah was in Splash, Kill Bill, both 1 and 2, Clan of the Cave Bear, one of the most amazing movies I've ever seen, and created a board game called Literary Hub, which is one of the top-selling board games in the world today. But each of these individuals has a special talent, a superpower that most people aren't aware of. Okay, let's go back. Let's look at Sir Anthony Hopkins. Sir Anthony Hopkins was actually diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome as a child. He expresses obsessive thinking, hard abilities to maintain long-term friendships, and has a unique way of looking at things. The director of Silence of the Lambs was stated that he chose Anthony Hopkins because of this diagnosis, because it gave the character Hannibal Lecter such a unique perspective in the world that allowed him to emulate that perspective on screen and draw us into a visual effect that we had never seen before on the screen through a villain. Simone Biles, diagnosed with ADHD. Even with the diagnosis of ADHD in a known inability to highly focus on things, Simone has channeled that and utilized that energy to drive herself to a level of exceptionalism in any athlete throughout the world today. Elon Musk came out on national TV in 2016 on the Saturday Night Live show talking about his diagnosis of autism. He utilizes autism to think creatively and outside of the box. He has funneled that into a form of creativity that has led us things like PayPal, SpaceX, and the ability to now look at Neuralink, which is integrating computer technology into the human brain and allowing individuals to function at a level that they didn't before when they were pleaded to a life in a wheelchair or in bed. Daryl Hannah, again, one of the most amazing actresses that's underrated in our society today. However, diagnosed with autism as a child, and then still comes out to create an amazing board game. If you've never played, literally a great game, something I recommend everybody give a shot. So this really was an inspiration for my wife and I for greatness. If these individuals can turn their life and take the sidekick and being brushed aside by society and said, I have this strength that I can use to my advantage instead of a weakness. How can I turn my children and give my children the ability to become superheroes in their own right? So we adopted, like we talked about, or adopted our oldest two children when they were both, our oldest daughter was 3 and our son was 2 at the time. I mentioned they were both diagnosed with autism, ADHD, ADD, PTSD, auditory processing disorder, and visual impairments. Most of the time, we were pleaded to a special program where they would be given adaptive skills to try to learn as much as possible. My wife and I, my wife being a teacher, and myself believing that the only thing holding them back is the rocket ship to the stars, we decided to turn the situation around and look at means to get them to be the most exceptional human beings they could be. They've actually taught us that no matter what the hurdle in life is going to be, we can find a way to overcome those hurdles by modifying our approach to the solution, not the solution itself. And I can promise you, no matter who you are today, no matter where you're at, that it is a challenge. Whatever we do is going to be a challenge, but the victory on the other side is always sweeter than what we had in mind initially. And we've actually created 2 of the most amazing superheroes that I myself as an adult look up to today. So I want you guys to meet my daughter. This is Josephina. Josephina just entered 9th grade. She's a freshman in high school. Josephina is quite petite. She'll never be taller than, and I'm sorry to say this, she'll never be taller than 4'8", but she's a powerhouse in her own right. She loves sports, loves being an athlete. She was told she would never be able to play with the normal kids because of her focus. She took her hyper focus and decided that she wanted to be a competitive athlete and play for softball teams. She wound up taking individual pitching lessons and led her team to more victories and actually wound up with a record of 26-2 in her pitching career as a competitive pitcher in girls softball. Decided to turn that into running because she was told that she ran like a duck and decided I'm going to run like a duck across that finish line. She now is a competitor, runs cross country for her school. Her school did place third overall in the state of Arizona, so I'm really proud of her on that. And now she runs 5Ks and wants to start training for her first half marathon. And the picture up here, though, the other thing is she's also stepped up and turned this to her faith. And with her faith, she's now one of the youth leaders in our church as well. Ryan is a unique superhero on his own mind. Ryan also has auditory processing disorder, so he only is allowed to take in, or he has the ability to take in half the information that you and I hear and process that information. Ryan was a competitive soccer player. His team was ranked number 11 overall in his age bracket across the state. He was the number one scorer on our team that we played with. Then he decided, I need another challenge. And he wanted to play music. So Ryan, as you see here, has taken up the guitar. In the lessons he takes, he's now the lead guitarist and lead vocalist for his rock band that tours around the valley here in Arizona. He also decided that just because I have auditory processing disorder doesn't mean it can stop me, and he decided he wanted to fly. So Ryan recently just joined the Civil Air Patrol here in Arizona, and as of the 1st of September, will be receiving his first promotion in that program as well. And he'll be starting his private pilot lessons when he turns 14. So let's look at this. If these individuals have the ability to impact us on a daily basis like this, what does that mean for us looking at the workforce and changing these thought processes to superpowers that we can apply in the workforce? Individuals with the neurodiverse component are no different than you and I in how we perceive things, but they have a superpower in how they see things. They have other special interests or talents that we need to implement in the workforce to help us accelerate. A number of individuals on the spectrum alone are hyper detail oriented. If we help structure this and drive them to roles such as engineering, mathematics, the ability to capture information and process and data analytics alone would be astronomical to any organization that we help them in. I had the ability to an individual who wound up with his doctorate in augmented reality and virtual reality at the same time. The individual was recruited by other companies. And his biggest achievement was that he was on the spectrum and nobody wanted to give him the chance until he wound up with his doctorate. A lot of these individuals are talented with their structure and their ability to organize. We've heard of that earlier in the virtual libraries, and from our prior speaker that the library in itself and the way they organize, the structure and ability to align things in perspective and also see allow for workflows to be extremely well accelerated, and using that in offices today. They do have a unique form of communication, but that communication can be targeted for others where we actually need to bend what we're seeing as normal and allowing others the chance to step up and hear their voice instead of shunning and putting in the corner. The ability to recall facts and details. One of the other superpowers my son possesses is a uncanny and ability to recall historical facts and dates to within hours of some of those occurring. We were at an event and he was having conversations with the soccer team and was able to recall the date of birth and death of every president of the United States up through Trump. So definitely unique, definitely applicable even in the workforce and some of the things they can recall. And they have a level of authenticity. When we're looking for the truth instead of a yes man or a woman, it gives us the ability to look at who these individuals are at an entirety and being authentic in what we're looking for. One of the greatest things, quotes I've ever heard is, obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. You have to figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it. I've been blessed to have two out of three of my children on the spectrum. It's not a hindrance. It's not a burden, and it's definitely not something to walk away from. It's something we should embrace, something we should raise up and celebrate because of their uniqueness and their individuality has allowed them to become leaders in their own right and in their own passage and who they are and what they're able to do. If we turn these leaders into the workforce and give them the ability to step up and shine and look outside of what people are perceiving as normal, it gives all of us the ability to look at the unique superpowers that each one of us possess and allows us to go from a sidekick to a superhero. So, with that, if there are any questions, thoughts, or any comments, I'm open to it. If you'd like to reach me, please be happy to share more of the details of this. But with that being said, I thank you for taking the time to listen to me babble about how we can turn individuals from sidekicks to superheroes.
Thank you. That was great. Are you talking? Can you hear me? You are talking. I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear anything, and I can see you waving. Nothing yet. Okay.
Hey, I can't hear you. You're probably muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
I hear other Lisa. Where is other Lisa? There's somebody. No, I hear Shelly.
This is
Shelly.
Shelly. Hello. Hello.
Hi. Your voice kind of sounds like Lisa. I was like, other Lisa, not this Lisa.
And then I think my headphones, I can tell they're doing something weird because they're not sounding quite right. But
okay.
This is so cool.
It's fun in here. We've had like different people come in at different times, and it's fun. It's funny.
It's just so fun roaming around and like seeing people passing them and like.
I know. Oh, there's some other people. Oh, there's still a good number of people. They're just roaming around. It's so funny to watch the little hexagons.
I know.
Lisa, can you hear? Can you speak? Can we hear you? Nope.
All right.
Me, Lisa?
Oh, there you are. There you are. Try again.
I'm trying to find you.
Is that you?
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
We still can't hear you, Lisa. We cannot hear you.
Me, Lisa?
Yeah, Lisa Duke, we cannot hear you. Did you try the mute button that's up at the top left? Okay. Mark said earlier that his sound was going to his phone for some reason. You might want to check that. I don't know. But nobody out here can hear you when you speak.
Hey, can you hear me? I'm going to see if I could help at all.
Hi, Dan. I can.
Hey.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Okay. Lisa, couple things. One is if you're using the headset mic, there may be 2 mutes. So check the actual headset.
Oh, no, wait, Dan, I'm so sorry. I just realized I know what she's doing.
There you go.
Lisa, for some reason, you have shared yourself as a screen. I don't know how you even did that. Come back down and just be a regular bubble again. Just be like, I don't know how you shared your whole self. You might need to come out of the platform and come back. Like, this is very weird. Yeah. Oh, there she is. All right. Start with that. Now, make sure you're not muted or anything. No, we cannot hear you.
Thank you. I will. I'm going to pay for the class soon, too.
We cannot hear you.
So that's the way she started.
I know.
Yeah, let's start here, though. Like, don't do anything else weird because you weren't supposed to be, like, back there like that. Okay. Can you take off your headset? See if you can just talk to the computer. All right, so you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Nope, cannot hear you. Dan, you want to try some of your stuff now? I mean, I thought it was because she was putting herself up on that screen and that would mess everything up.
Yeah.
But
The question that I have is if she's on the headset, there's going to be a mute button on the headset, but also on the actual computer. The other thing I would check is in the My Settings within this sphere, what mic she actually has clicked. So if you go to the settings screen and you click the
Good morning.
mic, make sure it's the right
What's up?
mic.
I know. Check this out. I joined a neurodiversity.
Everybody,
chat.
we can hear you.
Oh, that's for Jamie. I got her wallet and a little bracelet.
Everybody, we could hear you if you're
Look at
not.
Whoever's talking to Jamie, we can hear you.
Lisa, so what I'd like you to do is if you go to the My Settings at the bottom, it's the thing with 3 dots.
Oh, hey, Dan, real quick, just that you know, she just texted me. This may help with what you're telling her. It's having the device, the system is not picking up her computer mic for some reason.
So, I mean, it's the same thing. So, Lisa, go to that settings and you're going to see the camera spot and you're going to see the mic spot. Make sure that the right mic is selected. So settings is at the bottom. You're going to see an X and a question mark and a globe, and it's the third from the right. It's got 3 dots. Looks like sideways rainfall. Let me know if you're able to find the settings button. It should be, if it's not up, then it should be a little bar across the bottom left. For those watching, welcome to the wonderful world of live production.
Thanks for your help with this, Dan.
No problem. Microphones are like kids. They only do what you tell them once in a while. Hey, Catherine, if you want to give her my phone number, I can call her and troubleshoot directly. Up to you. This should go out without saying, everyone, but if you have to run to the bathroom, please mute before you go.
It reminds me of that thing, like in the early days of the pandemic, with the poor girl who took her laptop to the bathroom
Oh, yeah.
while she was on Zoom.
Hey, Shelly, I can hear you. Did you take the mic? Because I can hear
Me?
you all the way outside.
You can?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Look on your bottom left, click on the microphone, and just make sure you didn't take the mic. It could just be because that's the only sound. Where's Lisa? Lisa!
Yeah, I don't. Like if it's just whited out. Like I haven't. Let me see what happens if I don't want to click on it and ruin anything.
As long as you don't hit Skybox, you'll be okay.
What's Skybox message? Enter.
Yeah, just don't do that. As long as you don't hit anything with Skybox, you're fine. As long as if you hover over the mic, is there an option to take the mic?
Yeah, it says microphone plus or minus and raise hand.
Yeah, you might have accidentally taken the mic. That might be it.
Let me see.
I don't know.
No,
to be honest with you.
I didn't. No. When I click on it, it gives me the option to either take the mic or to raise my hand.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Then I guess not.
So
Okay. Okay. I guess it's just because you're the only sound right now. Maybe. I just walked up. I was like, I hear Shelly.
Me and my
So-
my loud trumpet voice.
So you can't hear other people when you're out there?
Not the other ones. No, it was just Shelly.
Got it.
Sorry.
Just Shelly. Okay. If anybody else wants to join to the other space and listen to Miles from Peak Performers.
All right.
So if anybody wants to come here about using your neurodiversity at work while Miss Lisa works on that.
Okay. Yeah. I'll come into the other room while this is being worked on. Lisa, so sorry. I want to listen to your presentation.
That's not what I want to do. I want to go in here. It's saying to edit portal.
Yeah, no, it's just
No, I know. You're leaving?
No.
Oh, wow. I'm like elevated. This is interesting. Okay.
rock and roll.
All right. So are we live? Are we good to go, Catherine?
All right, give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1, and go.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. I see a couple folks in the audience right now. My name is Miles, and this is Eric. We are with Peak Performers. Thanks so much for having us out today, and we're excited to chat with you a little bit more about job seeking tips for those folks who are neurodiverse. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the presentation. I'm happy to take some questions from the audience, but I will warn you, I'm a little bit newer to the controls here, so just be patient with me as I kind of figure out how to respond to any of the individual folks in the audience, but I do want to hear from you. We'll go ahead and jump into the presentation. Real quick, we're going to be talking today about who the heck Peak Performers is and why we're here talking with the folks in the community here who are neurodiverse. We're going to be talking a little bit more from a general standpoint about how to find disability-friendly employers. Then we're going to move on to some general resume tips that you can leverage in your own job search. We're going to move on to success strategies. So basically, especially success strategies that might be specific to you and your individual barriers that you may experience as a neurodiverse person. And then finally, we're going to wrap it all up today with adaptations and accommodations. But before we do that, Eric, who are you?
Yes, I'm Eric. I'm the Disability Inclusion Partner, work hand in hand with Miles, and we're extra excited to be here sharing these details with you all.
Absolutely. And my name is Miles. So I work for Peak Performers. I've been here for about 7 years. And as a disability inclusion partner, our job is to go out in the community to advocate, to spread awareness about the full spectrum of the disability experience. And also, quite frankly, to encourage employers to hire people with disabilities, because ultimately people with disabilities experience an unemployment rate that is double that of the national average. It may affect them being able to get a job in the first place. It may affect them keeping a job, or may even affect them being able to get promoted within the role that they currently have. And what Performers seeks to do is to level the playing field so that all people have equal access to opportunities. We couldn't be more excited to be here talking with you all, and hopefully some of the tips that we're able to give to you today help steer you on the right path towards whatever your future career goals look like. So without any further ado, though, let's talk about who Peak Performers is. So Eric, who is Peak Performers? What do we do?
Yeah, so Peak Performers has been around for the past 30 years. And what we do is we help people with disabilities and chronic medical conditions, career clients as well, find that great talent. Some of the jobs that we offer are going to be temporary, that will definitely have that end date once you start. Temp to hire, which you'll work with us and then you'll be hired on permanently with the client, and then direct hire, permanent, where you'll go through us for the onboarding and things of that nature, and then you'll be directly with that client. We've also put over 850 people to work last year. Some of those placements include administrative assistants, accounting, finance, engineering. So for the majority of the jobs we work with are going to be office professional or IT roles, any type of scientific type of things of that nature. We do focus on those, so we will not be the source for any warehousing or food service or any of those type of industries. What we do is we really focus on those industries that will be able to help you excel in those environments. So anything in an office and most IT roles. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I love about Peak Performers and why I sing to the highest levels of Peak Performers and what we do is our local clients. We do have over 80 plus local clients, but we're also now nationwide, So our clients are growing as we speak. They're more than local, and that's what the best part of this.
And many of you may be wondering, like, hey, should I take a temporary role? And that's ultimately a decision that's up to you, whether Peak Performers is a resource for you or not. Just know that here at Peak Performers, we actually have a requirement that 75% or more people that we submit to our clients have to be people with disabilities. And that does include neurodiversity and that entire spectrum of people experiencing it as well. So we have your back. We are looking out for different ways that we can get you the accommodations that you need to be successful, and also help have maybe some of those uncomfortable conversations to ensure that you are successful in the workplace. We're here to help advocate for you. And one of the benefits to seeking out temporary jobs or even temp to perm jobs is a lot of times it can help you build your experience, and it helps the employer try you out, but it also helps you try out the employer and see, hey, I just got this brand new degree in X, Y, and Z. Do I actually enjoy X, Y, and Z? So don't be afraid to take a temp job as a way to explore career opportunities and what your true passion for in life is. If you are interested, and I would encourage you to check it out right now in a different browser tab, go to peakperformers.org. We recently rebranded, so I apologize because our website looks completely different. But what you can do is you can go to browse jobs and you can see all the details of all the different jobs that we have. We try to be as transparent as possible, including things like the compensation for the role, whether it's remote or on site or hybrid. We also try to include things like geographically where it is, and also most importantly, what we're looking for. We're very black and white about how we screen people. So if it shows up in the job description as something that we're looking for, that is something that we definitely want to see represented on the resume. And many job seekers that I encounter find themselves spinning their wheels, applying for jobs that they're just not quite a good fit for right now. We still want you to submit your resume, even if you don't see a job, and you can do that by joining our talent pool on our website as well. So let's dive right into the content today, Eric. And so first off, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about finding disability-friendly employers. This can be kind of tricky, right?
It is. It could be, but the thing is don't get tripped up by thinking about it too much in the beginning, right? A simple Google search will be, the best. We go to Google for everything else. Why not go to Google for your job search as well, right? Most things are just a Google search away. Read reviews and look at the news articles. Just make sure that you're cognizant of what's going on and the stars and the reviews that they may get. And if it's something that you like and you can move forward with, I would suggest applying for them.
And you have to take it all with a grain of salt, right? Because certain entities may not really manage their Google presence, but they still might be really good employers. For example, we work a lot with government agencies, and they're pretty notorious for not really taking control of those Google reviews. So you have to take it all with a grain of salt, and you have to realize the full spectrum of experiences that people have. But it can be a good way of just screening an employer out and just making sure that it's a really good fit for you and kind of what you're looking for. But I also think that it makes sure that you want it to align with your own goals and also your own ethos as well, too. So if you're looking for a company that, say, for example, is very ecological, you may want to be something that has a very strong ESG statement, or maybe a company that represents diversity. When you get to them and when you Google them, is it just a bunch of white dudes that are up there, or do you actually see diversity represented, and do you see a really strong DE&I statement? So you can find a lot and spend the time, spend the energy. I know that you need a JOB, right? NOW. However, it takes time to take the time to respect yourself and realize that you bring a lot to the workplace, and that's important for you to find a job that's a good fit for you as well. A little bit, right, Eric?
We did. I will start with just their D&I statement and see how robust that is. Move on to their marketing from there. How is disability inclusion aligned in their brand? Do you see disability in their marketing? Things like that. Can you relate to some of the marketing that they are putting out there? That's some of the things that I would resonate with me.
Yeah. And a lot of times too, you can even look at the bottom of any job description or the EEOC statement.
Exactly.
What kinds of language are they using? And are they just trying to do the bare minimum that they need to do to be legally required? Or does it actually seem like they're trying to preach? But then you can also move on, not only from their marketing, but looking at people that work within that company, seeing what kinds of things that they're saying, seeing how they're representing themselves, and seeing how the company is from a broader perspective as well. We talked about job description. So look at those job descriptions really, really closely, and also be screening for things that might be unfairly disabilities. For example, is it a job that seems to arbitrarily have the ability to lift 50 pounds? Maybe that's something to consider, right? Like that's, sometimes there's a lot of devil to be found in the copy paste. And sometimes that is intentional, what companies are doing specifically to screen people. It's unintentional. Give you an idea for exactly where they're at within their disability inclusion journey. And finally, let's ask for referrals, right?
I think so. Asking for referrals is the easiest way for you to get, the lower hanging fruit. Do you know other people with disabilities? Do those people work them where they work, how they've gotten that job, how they got, information on that job. And really, you can go ahead and just be done. The network that you have, go to your network. You're networking every day. You have your LinkedIn and your social medias. I would go to those because now in today's age, everybody is going to LinkedIn. I just heard the other day that TikTok is the new Google, you guys. TikTok. So if somebody wants to ask a question about a job, they go to TikTok and type it in just like Google. And I would say the same thing in this instance. Go to your TikTok, go to your socials and say, hey, guys, I'm looking for, some type of work or any type of lower hanging your references and your group has to say and share.
And I think too, it would be helpful to people who have, who are neurodiverse, just like you are, and I think it's very valuable to ask them, hey, where do you work? Are they hiring right now? And be very direct about your question, right? Are you guys hiring right now? But then if you don't, if they're not, then maybe say, well, in your experience, what other places have you found that have been really, really inclusive of my neurodiversity? So you can find a lot of different folks with different range of experiences. And keep in mind, it's just one person's perspective, but it still helps point you in the right direction for where you might want to kind of sniff around a little bit further. So let's move on to resume tips and talk. So we talked about this very briefly, but you gotta apply for the right roles, right?
You have to, right? Many younger job seekers apply for roles which they're not qualified. And I don't know if I can say younger or older because it's across the spectrum.
All kinds of people.
Across. So, all kinds of people do that. So be realistic. Focus your energy on the right roles. I just think that the days of having one resume, applying to all these different roles with that one resume may be a little dated. The best way that you can make sure that you're looking the best in front of these recruiters or these AI machines that are screening you out is making sure that you are poking in keywords from the job description into your resume, then applying.
Yeah, so keywords are really important because realistically, there's going to be your resume for larger companies are probably going to be evaluated first by an artificial intelligence or computer. And that's not super smart. Basically what it's doing is it's doing keyword matching from the job description. So if you can take some extra time to make sure that what appears in the job description appears in your resume, you're already going to stand out from many other people because many people, what they do is they just go to Indeed and just click and apply for a bunch of jobs. And then they wonder why they don't get back, but they're not spending their time and energy effectively. And keep in mind too that you have to be respectful to yourself because even if it's a no, and even if you're getting 100 no's, it still stings, right? You want to make sure that you are putting yourself out there in the right kind of way. And I would think that it would also be important too that as you're customizing these resumes, also try to look at the company and see what kinds of things matter to them. Look at other people that work within that company and see how you can kind of imitate or at least reflect on your resume what seems to be of value to them, because that can oftentimes be the difference. But then let's talk about experience, especially if you don't have experience, right?
If you don't have much experience, what can you do, right? Well, it says here, focus on your coursework, volunteering, and elaborate on these skills you've gained in other roles. So you may not have a lot of professional work experience, but on your day-to-day at school, on your day-to-day at home, or whatever you're doing, you may be doing a lot of these. If you're conference calling, if you're on the phone and typing, you can file, you can take customer service calls, you can type, you can do data entry. There's many things that you're doing on your day-to-day that you can incorporate into your resume and have it highlighted. Even if you're like everybody's on video games right now. Even if you're on video games, right? And you sit there, you need to be creative and think about what you're doing and how you can tie that into work and put it on your resume.
And even if you work in fast food right now, that's still experience that you're getting. And you're doing cash operations,
customer service.
You're doing customer service. You're dealing with sometimes uncomfortable situations, and that may not be applicable, say, for example, an office administrative job, but it still is experience and it's still valuable for you, and still something that if you frame it the right way, then it can definitely help. For peak performers part, by the way, what we're looking for is predominantly office skills. So if you've done a bunch of different things or you haven't done a lot yet in your professional career, we'd be looking for things like Microsoft Office proficiency, customer service, skills with over the phone, skills with just operating in kind of a general office environment. That's ultimately what we're looking for. And then if you have more specialized skill sets such as accounting, really being able to elaborate on that. But then the final thing that I would tell you is that, don't overdo it. One page is plenty. For especially if you are looking for your first job, or you're looking for like a more of a junior level position, just keep in mind that a lot of times recruiters are only spending 6 to 10 seconds on a resume. So if you spend any more than one page, they may not read the entire thing and they may miss something. So I think that one page is generally a good rule of thumb, especially if you're applying for a lot of companies as well. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I do think if you're in the beginning of your career and you don't have a lot of experience, then yes, one page is plenty. If I'm dealing with a professional that has done things in the past, one page will not be enough for them to put what they have on there. So it just depends on where you are in your career. If you can put what you have done on one page, that is great, right? And I'm just talking about the people that are professional that's been in the employee field for 10 years, 20 years, right? And then they're looking to pivot. They don't know how to do their resume. Then I wouldn't say one page, right? You have wealth of not going to fit on one. I just graduated and I've had 2 jobs, 3 jobs. That resumes are one resume.
So as you can see, there's some nuance here, right? There is some nuance. There is some take it with a grain of salt, and every individual person is going to have a different experience. Yes. The other thing I would point out too is that a lot of times if you're applying within more details on your resume, they might also want to see like specific courses as well, because that kind of thing is very applicable for them. Ultimately, the rule of thumb is look at your resume, look at your experience, start with a big, long master document, then kind of cut it down to the stuff that's relevant to the specific job.
Yeah.
All right. And, I don't know if there's any questions that have popped up. Catherine, is there anybody that's had a question? Let me know. Otherwise, we'll just kind of move on to the next slide here.
I don't think so. I don't see any raised hands.
Nothing here.
Nope. I think you're good.
Okay. All right. No. Okay. Cool. I'm having a little trouble hearing on my end, but hopefully we will.
She said we're good.
Okay. Cool. We're good. All right. Sounds good. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to talk about specific success strategies, especially by those for those within the neurodiverse community. So the first thing that I want to
self-disclose.
Should I? Should we? Actually, Peak Performers in the next couple of weeks is going to be featuring our own presentation about neurodiversity and our neurodiverse world. And one of the folks that we have, the name of Joe, who works here, who didn't really realize until his 40s that he was neurodiverse. And he also really kind of had that moment of like, gosh, should I describe it? That doesn't mean that he didn't feel it all of his life, because he definitely felt that way his entire life, but it was more like the education piece about like understanding what it is, who falls under it, and then kind of seeking out a diagnosis. I think ultimately self-disclosure is such a personal decision for many people. And the challenge is that a lot of times managers might be looking for a culture fit. I hate that term because I feel like that can oftentimes be shorthand for discriminating against people. However, ultimately it's looking at the culture within the company and figuring out whether self-disclosure is going to do you more harm or more good. I like to think that in today's emerging world, and especially if you find the right company or the right organization, a lot of times it can definitely benefit you to self-disclose. And here's why. First off, you may have your particular neurodiversity completely managed right now. You may have been adapting to it your entire life. Many people may not even realize that you're neurodiverse, but keep in mind that sometimes your needs specifically change over time. And I want you to make sure that if you ever need it, that you leave the door open for an accommodation if it does come up, because the moment that you do self-disclose in that way, you are under a protected class of people, and you do have a different level of legal protections. But the other thing too, and this is a lot of times people might just better understand how to interact with you. So give you a kind of an example that's a little bit tangential to this, but I myself am hearing impaired. I have been since I was, I wear hearing aids, but at test two, he starts speaking to me, he goes, Miles, Miles, Miles. And I can't hear him. And somebody, you know, if it wasn't Eric that knows me very well, he might interpret that and say, oh, well, Miles is just ignoring me. Miles doesn't care about me. Miles is aloof or something like that. But if we have a conversation and if he understands that I hear differently than he does, then maybe we can kind of come to a better communication.
So what I'm hearing from you is honesty is.
It can often be, you know, it all depends. And sometimes there are different workplaces that when you need a job, you need a job. And sometimes you have to find yourself in that environment. So if you think that there's a situation where you're going to be actively retaliated against or a hostile work environment, maybe it's worthwhile approaching that with caution. And people that are here at this now, ask them, have they self-disclosed? What does it look like? How can they do it in a tactful way? And would they recommend?
I love it. I love it. People are too honest or don't share enough, right? So you really have to find that really soft spot in the middle.
Yeah.
And then how do you walk that line of sharing the right amount of information?
Yeah.
I think for me personally, that right information is what I'm comfortable sharing. Mm-hmm. When I start to get uncomfortable talking about, if we go too far and I start to get uncomfortable, so comfortable, if I'm comfortable with answering and engaging, then I'm good with that. That's the amount of information I'm good with sharing.
Sometimes what is experienced too is other people may perceive you as sharing too much or too little. And what happens a lot of times during interviews with neurodiverse candidates is they're either very, very brief, or maybe they share way too much during the course of the interview. And I think I don't really have a great recommendation for how to manage that. I think the best thing that you can do is just be aware, maybe ask questions and try to kind of adapt to the situation. It's important that you don't ever feel like you need to mask, but it's also important to kind of read the room. So this can be a really tricky thing to walk, right? Like this is a very tricky line to walk of like how much to share versus how much to kind of hold back. It's hard and it takes a lot of practice. And I would say that even as a neurotypical person myself, sometimes I find myself in a bit of a quandary for how much do I share, especially in a professional environment too. Again, I don't have an answer for this, but I think it's just something to be aware of as you're going into these situations and exactly how you can make sure that you are setting yourself up for the best possible scenario as well too. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are neurotypical and they just may have dated views and they may view you differently, and I would hate to see you shut out of a job opportunity because unfortunately people perceived you differently and they deemed you not the right culture fit. We already talked about how much I hate that word, right?
Right.
But let's talk about some other aspects too, and that is the idea of handshakes and eye contact. There are many of you that might be watching this right now who are uncomfortable with making eye contact, or it might be difficult for you to maintain eye contact, or it might be really uncomfortable for you to shake hands. So really the question becomes, how do I go into an interview situation and how do I politely ask the person, hey, I'm actually not comfortable shaking your hand, or I'm actually not comfortable with making eye contact. I don't know, this is tricky, isn't it, Eric? Like, you know, these things are all tricky.
It is tricky, but the good thing is, I feel like with this one, what we're talking about is right now in the society that we're in, handshakes is not so much the thing to do anymore, right? After COVID, and COVID is still coming back up and down. Who knows what's going on with it, right? But handshaking, you know, me and Miles was just talking at about the job fair the other day, and a lot of candidates come up and, you know, they're like automatically like that. And me and Miles is like, should we shake hands out? You know, but the
Especially
thing
if we're
is,
shaking hands with 400
400 people, right? But the thing is that you can do other alternatives, and I'm pretty sure everybody will understand. You could do a fist pump.
We could wave.
We could wave. You got bump elbows. I mean, there's a lot of things alternatively you can do besides a handshake, and it would give you the same experience because everybody understands.
And I think that a lot of times, as long as you self-advocate in a assertive way, but also in a polite way, that's ultimately going to get you most of the way there. And as long as you kind of walk in, I think that most hiring managers would say, if you tell them, hey, I wanted to let you know that I am not super comfortable with making eye contact. It's not that I'm not interested in what you have to say, and it's not that I hope you don't perceive me any differently. It's just that it's really difficult for me to do so. So that's it's a hard, and it can be often uncomfortable. But a lot of times, if you take a little bit of time to explain the situation, or explain just like what you're asking for, instead of just kind of ignoring the elephant in the room, it can be helpful from my experience as well. And the final thing that I would do is adjusting your soft skills. So again, I don't want to generalize because neurodiversity is such a broad range of experiences, and some of the different soft skills that people may have in spades, other people may find very difficult. And that also very much depends on whether you are an individual that experiences autism or ADHD or dyslexia. I think the best thing that you can do is be aware of how you are being perceived by others, and really seek to adjust when possible, but when it's not really possible to adjust, or when you feel like it would be unfair to yourself through masking, I think that what is really important to do is seek feedback from others, and again, figure out how you can tactfully go about self-advocating and making sure that people are aware that, hey, this is maybe something that I experienced that's a little bit different, or this is at least something that I'm asking for to be treated equitably during the hiring process.
Absolutely right.
All right, we talked about a lot of stuff right here, but we're going to move on to adaptations and accommodations. And really, I like putting both in the same sentence right there, because accommodations oftentimes are seen as a little bit scary. They're not. I promise a lot of times it's just a matter of thinking about them as adaptations to the workspace as well. But let's talk about folks that are neurodiverse may ask for a quiet space, right?
They may ask, right? And whether it's a headphone that you need to wear while you're working to block out noise or to keep you focused, or placed with be placed in a area at work that has less traffic going by you, less distractions. That's all easy accommodations, basically. Accommodations should be, I think accommodations should be asked because that's going to make you the best you are while you're working. If you are feeling great, you have a dim light because of the, whatever it is, you're going to get the job done, and it's going to be just a great, seamless time while you're working. Everything's going to go, your boss is going to be happy, everything's going to be great. Now, on the flip side of that, if you go in and you don't ask for one, right? And then, your work is going to start to be affected, right? And you may miss work because of headaches and things of that nature. So it's always a best thing, a good practice to find out what your accommodation is and then ask for that.
Yeah, really, you don't want to wait till there's any kind of performance issue, and that's where so many employers get sideways on this kind of thing or have a bad taste in their mouth, unfortunately, because most of the time accommodations and adaptations to the workspace come at no cost to the employer. They're free. There's slight adaptations to the workspace, such as having a quieter space in the office so you can actually focus and actually focus and get your work done, right? Yeah. There's a couple other things that do come up when we talk about accommodations and that organization on the role. Depending on the role that you have, you may be able to reassign particular tasks. Fundamentally, not to get too deep in the weeds about the law and the way this is written, but basically, if it's not really core to your job duty, a lot of times you might be able to ask, but just realize that the reasonable accommodation process, it is a negotiation, and you may not be able to get everything that you want. But it also is it depends on how you go about asking for it and what you're asking for, and are you willing to negotiate? And negotiation is, by its nature, give and take. But if you can realistically, say, here's what I'm asking for, here's why I'm asking for it, without necessarily outing yourself as a neurodiverse person, but just asking for it in a respectful way. I think that most employers these days are going to be open-minded to that kind of thing, especially assertive about it as well too. The next one that we talk about is communication preferences. So I know that you and I both communicate a little bit differently as well, don't we, Eric?
We do. What I would suggest is saying you have to know what your communication preference is. How do you like to be communicated with and talked to? Once you know that, make sure you let your boss, your coworkers, and your peers know, so that that relationship will not be, damaged by just the communication styles, right?
And let's talk about that. So, for example, as a hearing impaired person, I prefer to have everything in writing afterwards. That way I can take actionable steps, or I'll sit there in the meeting and take notes on it so that I know exactly what needs to be done afterwards. I know how I am best successful, and I get really nervous when all instructions are given to me orally, where there doesn't seem to be clear next steps or a follow-up email. That makes me a little bit nervous. And many of you that are neurodiverse may experience similar kinds of things, especially if it's difficult for you to keep track of all that stuff, or whatever the case happens to be. So again, self-advocate, ask for what you need to be successful, ask how you communicate best. And a lot of times that's going to work out kind of in your favor. And also, again, it's going to help you out not only with your relationship with your boss, but your relationship with your coworkers too.
Exactly.
The final thing that I would add too is that accommodations oftentimes will refer to specialized technology. Yes. So, for example, if you are a person who is blind, there's obviously JAWS screen readers that will read aloud your entire computer screen to you as you navigate things. But many of you that are on the call might struggle with things like concentration or task management or even organization. And the cool thing is that the landscape is changing very quickly, and these things, again, come at very, very little cost to the employer. So if you're able to ask for what you need to be successful, explain why you need it, and be assertive but polite about it, but also try to come with a solution, not a problem, to the table and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to get. I think that most employers these days will be cognizant of that. And if you find an employer that isn't, then to be honest with you, maybe it's time to look for a different job, or at least a different manager within that company that can be a little bit more accommodating to the specific needs that you have. If you do have a lot of, by the way, accommodations is a very, it's a very complex subject just because there's a lot of legal things that are around it. But what I would recommend is that you go to askjan.org. That's funded by the federal government, and it's called the Job Accommodation Network. But that's a great way for you to discover, because even two people who are neurodiverse, even two people who have ADHD, or two people that are on the autism spectrum, they oftentimes will experience accommodations and have preferences just like any other human would. And, you ultimately have to be able to kind of best for you and be able to gather more information to find out what other people who have similar experiences to me start. You can even call Ask Jan and specifically have a consultation with them about what you might need to be successful and what they would recommend that you look into further. So with that was actually the end of the presentation. We're going to stop sharing our screen and pause for any questions.
Hey guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate that question because ultimately, look, it's with employment, there's two sides to the coin. And if you are an employer right now that's in the audience, that, it is something that you can work on too. Generally, I think employers can benefit from going to the same site, askjan.org. They also have a number of tools where you can call and specifically consult with them about things that you experience. What I would tell you as an employer is try to be vulnerable. I talk a lot about self-identification, and the reason that I advocate for it is that that a lot of times as a person with a disability or a person that's neurodiverse, you oftentimes can feel that you are completely alone and there's nobody else in the world that's like you, even though that's so far from truth. There are many people that are hearing impaired in this world. There's many people that are neurodiverse in this world. There are many different people out there that have very similar experiences to me, and sometimes I just feel alone, and that's because I don't hear enough people who are hearing impaired that are talking.
Mm-hmm.
So as an employer, you have an opportunity to self-identify whether you are a peer or a hiring manager or even the CEO of the company. You have an opportunity to share your disability experience, how it's affected you, and empower others around you to be able to self-advocate, to ask for what they need to be successful, for ask for accommodations, and also just bring their entire self to work as well. And when it comes to accommodations, what I think it's important is just realize that most of the time it comes at little to no cost to you. It's oftentimes very simple adaptations to the workspace. And I think that it's also, I see Eric. I think that it's also important to kind of keep in mind that you oftentimes overthink it. We get so buried in the weeds of the process that's needed to process an accommodation, but we might forget about the human beings that are actually asking for the accommodation itself. And just keep in mind as an employer that if somebody comes to you and asks for an accommodation, they oftentimes are doing so at a pretty significant risk. They might be extremely uncomfortable doing so. And so it's up to you to really take their request seriously and try to honor it as much as you possibly can.
It looks like we have 2 questions.
We have a couple comments in the chat here. Oh, Stacy says, now I can hear. And then Stacy says, some employers may make you jump through hoops for simple accommodations. Yeah, agreed, Stacy. And again, like as an employer, if you're listening to this right now, I would encourage you to think about your process and the reason that process is in place, but also how can you make the process faster and you feel less like you are just jumping through a bunch of different hoops as an individual who's requesting accommodations. All right. Any other questions? Feel free to hop up on the stage or share it in the chat here, and we'll make sure we address those.
Maybe.
Well, in the space chat right here, I'm going to drop the link to Peak's LinkedIn. So I encourage you all to check that out. And you can also check out our website, peakperformers.org, where you can find all the different jobs that we have. Whether you're a job seeker that's looking for work right now who is neurodiverse, or whether you're an employer that wants to hire people with disabilities, including people who are neurodiverse, we would encourage you to reach out to us. My name is Miles. He's Eric, and I'm going to drop in our LinkedIn here as well.
And please, if you guys are on LinkedIn, make sure you just click that follow button on us, because we're always on there. We're always interacting, and we're here for you all. So any questions, any comments, any frustrations, definitely reach out.
We want to thank you all so much for your time. Thank you, Catherine, for having us on here, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, everyone.
Good to see you all. Take care.
You guys did good.
Can you? Oh, nice.
There they are. They're somewhere here. Miles, I see you. I can quit hopping.
Oh, sorry. I'm
There.
Thanks,
Thank
Catherine.
you.
Hey, thanks again so much for agreeing to come on to our Neuroverse presentation. So can't wait to have. Yeah. So giving this presentation giving me a lot to think about for how to moderate the panel and stuff too. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspective too. So
Yeah.
So this is going to be interesting.
Oh, actually,
we're working on it. Like,
did you record us?
I did.
Like video. Can you send that to us, because we want to make a TikTok? Like, we're trying to.
I'm gonna send.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send everything
This would be a
to
good
Catherine.
video.
yeah, I think so.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy. I love this little platform too, Catherine.
So bear with me.
Okay, we'll have to play with it.
If you don't mind me asking.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
Bear with me, everyone. I'm recording everything on one screen and streaming it, and then trying to figure out how to simultaneously navigate actually being on the stage. So this could be challenging.
All right.
Perfect.
Cool. All righty, Catherine. Well, good to see you. Good luck with the rest of your.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Catherine.
Let's see. Well, that looks ugly. Testing something, everybody. Bear with me. And that still looks. That's like So what are other people seeing? Let's find out. That light does not work. Catherine, you still there?
I don't know if Catherine's here, but I'm here to help you do anything. But if you need to like,
I'm just
Just get
yeah,
a
I'm
beat
just trying to get
on.
this set up so it looks okay. Because I'm not
So I see you, and then I see the
okay.
screen larger, and then the screen is like, yeah, it's. I'm seeing the world environment of the Neuroverse.
Okay.
Like the
Let's see.
light.
That and then this. And then this way people could see what's being seen, and then let's go here. And actually, I don't want that part to be seen. So now we can really build that out there. Don't need that as much. Do I like just get started when it's time?
I think so. I would assume so, but
There we go. Let me. So now I look like a little troll.
I think you're like a tiny little disc, and like maybe you're very.
Now I can't even hear you. It's coming in really low.
I think I can see it. What's that?
Now I can't even hear you. It's coming in really low.
Oh, hold on. How about now?
Still low. Let me see.
I can hear you though.
You could hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay.
I don't see you in your little disc because you are only a very small piece of it. I can see you're raising your university slide though.
Okay. Let me do this. Test this. I want to be able to. I think I'm frozen.
No, I don't think you're frozen.
Okay, there.
Your screen might be, but you're not, and you're talking in them.
Okay, this might.
I can see babies.
Yeah, babies are at school. In kindergarten. Let's see. Okay, so that is working. I just want the screen share to work. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. This is being problematic. Okay. Yeah, what is going on?
Hey Dan, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. And if you do the take the mic feature, that'll help. But we are here and excited.
The problem I'm having is it appears that one of my screens is frozen and it's not allowing. Well, it appears that two of my screens are frozen. Wait a second. Oh, God. Hold on. I'm just trying to get this up and running. Apologies, everybody. Let's do this and see if I can bring this back. All right, let's see. Yeah, Catherine. Of course. Why is this? Okay, there we go. All right, can everybody hear me now? Is anybody there to hear me? Hello? So first of all, it doesn't appear that people can see me. Testing. Testing, is anybody there? Okay, I see some hearts. I'm going to assume. Okay. Let me make sure that this is working correctly. I'm just trying to, apologies everybody when you're, this is what happens when you go live and you're doing 15 things at once. So I appreciate all of you being here, just making sure everything looks all right and checking it out over here. This is what happens when you, okay. So let's get started. Actually, the one thing I did want to see is if anybody can see my screen share is active. So get a seat. Okay, can you see the presentation behind me? Okay, cool. Because I can't. So let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and understanding. My name is Dan Roth. This is going to be a different sort of presentation than you may have heard so far today. The title of this presentation is Raising Neurodiversity, Fears, Realities, and Conversations. And this is going to be an interactive conversation. It's going to be a very vulnerable conversation. It's going to be an open and honest conversation. And it's not going to be an easy conversation. And I did that specifically because in doing this work, I want to give back in a way that I wish had been available to me when I was younger. So everything I talk about is intended to bridge that gap and allow more and more people to feel comfortable in those spaces that they may not. As we go through, I don't expect anybody to be on camera. If you need any accommodations, please reach out. If you want to share something, but you want to do it anonymously, please reach out. No problem with that. I am not going to be using this slide presentation for the bulk majority, so feel free to hit or miss with that. If at any point you feel silenced, dismissed, or that your psychological safety is at risk, do what's best for you. No judgment. Different people have different triggers for different things, and I wanted to acknowledge those triggers and also the understanding that what I may deem as normal and part of the conversation may affect somebody differently. So let me start off by giving everybody a bit of background about me. I'm 40 years old. I just turned 40 at the beginning of the month. I was diagnosed with ADHD at age 5, language processing disorder at age 6. What that means is that oftentimes I know what I'm trying to say in my brain, but it doesn't always come out right. And people would say it came out funny and there would be misunderstandings. And that this led to a lot of things, which I'll get into. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression at age 9, developed an eating disorder and body dysmorphia at age 11, survived domestic violence and sexual assault at age 19. Then I went, as my social, as I got done with school and my social skills sort of caught up, I hyper focused on that and decided to go off my meds. Met my neurotypical wife at age 27. That's a story in of itself. Found out that my wife was pregnant at age 35, back on medication around the same time. Found out we were having twin girls. My daughters, Brooklyn and Haley. Brooklyn was diagnosed autistic when I was 37. She was 2. So let me start off by that information. So what I'm going to base this on is I want to tell everybody a story. I want to talk to you about my experience, and that will lead into where we go from here and those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions that come into play. See, when I was growing up, I was severely bullied, and in spite of my diagnosis, I was in a spot where I was on medication from a very early age. And at that time, really at the precipice of what we now understand about ADHD, it was not like these long-term medications. It was these time release. And I would feel like I was in an out-of-body experience. And that lasted pretty much my entire life. And I had to fight tooth and nail as hard as I could to get through school. And this is with a mother that's a 25-year kindergarten teacher. I was waking up early for school and doing homework, going to school, staying after for tutoring, staying after for sports, coming home, doing more work. And I wound up getting severely bullied and misunderstood. And it was always that situation where I knew I had the intelligence and the ability in me, but I wasn't able to show it. It was like this brick wall that that was in front of me that I couldn't force myself through. And something that so many neurodiverse individuals deal with is just having this knowledge of, well, I know I am a certain way, but how do I show that to others? And having that inability to do that really eats away at you, and it eats away at your mental health. And being a male, I never knew that I could suffer from depression. I never knew that I could suffer from anxiety. I never knew that men could have eating disorders. There's so much that's not talked about when it comes to comorbidities and other aspects of the neurodivergent experience. So oftentimes I felt like I was letting down my parents, and I was letting down my teachers, and I was letting down myself. And it was a very isolating, a very humbling, a very, very isolating experience that, to be very frank, I don't know how I got through. And it only got worse when the social context of it came into play, and I was in a situation where all these guys were picking on me and things that I can't even talk about because it's so extreme, and I've worked so hard to repress. And what this has to do with parenting is, as I grew up and as I looked at what I wanted my life to be, at a very early point, I knew I wanted to be a father. And I knew that I'd be a good father because I knew what it would have taken and the support that I needed, that I wanted, that I wish I had had growing up. And that's not a knock on my mother. I want to be very clear. This is not a knock on my mother. She did the best she could with the information she had, but there's this dissemination of, or this disparity between what a parent feels and what they feel like they could control and what they wish they could control. And then the child that's going through it wishing that they could make their parents proud, and having this firm understanding of, but I'm not. So looking back, I always thought to myself, well, I could be a really good dad. But also it got to a point where from a social perspective, I never thought I was going to meet that person that I would spend the rest of my life with and that I'd want to have children with. And then once I did, and the closer it came to us actually having children, the more scared that I got, because there I was sitting there, 27, 28, 29 years old, where friends of mine are already having children, and my life's not together. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted to be. I was struggling. The only thing I had going for me is knowing who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. So every day that we thought about it, there was more of this roadblock that I was putting in front of myself. And we were supposed to have kids at a certain point, and then like right after we started trying, we had to put that off due to a family situation. So I finally, like, I had gathered all this anxiety. I finally get ready, and then we have to pause. And then my grandmother passes away, and my mother-in-law recovers from breast cancer. And we said, you know what, this is timing. So we go and we try to have kids, and I'll never forget it. It was January 8th of 2019. I had a poker game, and my wife comes home, and she pulls me to the side and tells me that we're expecting. And I was elated, but I gotta tell you, I was just as terrified, if not more. And that led to a lot of thoughts and a lot of processes. And one of the things that I had to think about was, can I raise my children the way I am? Because at this point, I was still off of medication, and I'm not advocating for or against. But when I went off of it, I knew that I felt like that was a crutch. The thing about when you find out that you're having children is it's no longer about what is crutch. It's about what can I do to make myself the best possible parent. Because it's that moment that your life is no longer about you. It's about them. So I went back to therapy, and I decided to advocate for myself, and I stopped looking at advocating as being a crutch and as being something sad or hurtful that I had to go through. And instead, I started looking at it like, this is just part of me and being my best self. And no matter what that takes, I'm good with it. And there was a freedom in that acceptance. But it didn't end there, because just because I was back and advocating doesn't mean that I didn't have the fears. Because part of the therapy was I still had all those thoughts about what happens if my child winds up like me. What happens if my child struggles? What happens if my child is sick or hurt? What happens if I don't know what to do? What? Catherine, mute yourself, please.
Less blaming. So the likelihood that you're going to be less defensive when asking, like, well, what about this sound is nice, or what about this?
Okay, I'm going to have to mute. Sorry. So what happens when all of these things happen? Can you still hear me, Catherine? Give me a thumbs up. Catherine, could you okay, perfect. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay. So even though I'm back at therapy, all of these things are still happening, and I'm still having these thoughts about what happens if this, what happens if that. Is my lack of awareness, my ability to miss things, going to prohibit me from being a good parent? And these are very real fears. The question of, in that circumstance, is my hyperfocus a good thing? Because hyperfocus is great when you're not having to worry about other people. But if you're a parent and you get hyperfocused on something, you got a kid in the next room, that's not so great. So how am I going to navigate? And then the other compounding factor is, being that I have a neurotypical spouse, even the best spouse is never going to fully understand what a neurodiverse individual goes through. They're not going to be able to step into our skin or step into our shoes and walk around. So how am I going to navigate with that? What happens when times get tough and I'm sitting there wondering, am I doing this on my own again? And I've talked to a lot of neurodiverse parents, and there's a lot of this anxiety, a lot of this fear that comes along with the parenting experience. Now, mine was a little bit different because 4 weeks into my wife's pregnancy, we found out we were having twins. And we were it was the first set of twins on either side of our families. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen to my wife and I. So now not only am I scared and worried about how I'm going to be with one child, now I've got two. How does that work? How am I going to separate and spread that time? How am I going to focus in all these different directions? And I read every single book that there was out that I could find. But the thing was, I didn't find any neurodiverse parenting books for twin fathers. It was all about the men's guide to parenting. Like, no. What was really interesting about this, though, is, scale up and all these fears and anxieties. And then my children are born. And that's the day that my lights went on. That's the day that I became me. And what was funny about it is that before that previous 37 weeks, I constantly felt like my neurodiversity was going to be my biggest obstacle in being a good parent. Once my children were born, what I realized very quickly was my neurodiversity was my greatest asset in being a parent. I was sympathetic to their needs. I was tuned into their emotions. I understood very quickly how to react, and I was always looking for that alternate solution that wasn't always obvious, because as individuals that are neurodiverse, we're always looking 6 steps ahead. We always have this ability to see around the corner, to identify ways that other people just don't have visibility to because it's not how their mind operates. So the girls are born, and all of a sudden I have my why. I have these 2 gorgeous girls right in front of me. And for the first time in my life, I accepted and I loved the fact that I was neurodiverse, because it was such a blessing and such a help. And taking this a step further, and then we'll get into sort of the more critical, technical elements of this presentation. then my daughters too, and they both get tested for if they're on the spectrum. And my daughter Brooklyn was always really active, really physically active. She was building bridges and blocks and standing on things almost since the day she was born. But she gets tested, and we notice that she's holding things back, and she gets diagnosed as being on the spectrum. And I don't care who you are, if you're neurodiverse, neurotypical, or otherwise, when you hear that your child has a challenge, you're going to have that fear. And it's not necessarily a fear of because you have a problem with people that you just don't want them to be different. You don't want them to have to face those same challenges, those same things that you did. So you have that fear, and you have to start again, and then you have to put your mind at ease and do your best to push through, because at the end of the day, there's a difference between having a prospective child and then looking at a child that's born, that's staring straight at you, that just found out that you just found out they were diagnosed, and there's a moment in there that you go, so what? So what? And every day became a blessing. In my neurodiversity, I felt connected to Brooklyn. I'm not going to say more so than my other daughter, Haley, but I felt this intrinsic connection because I knew what that looked like. I knew what some of the challenges that she was going to face were. I found that I had an added layer of vulnerability, but patience, understanding that this is how she was, and she didn't need somebody to be critical of her. She needed somebody to adapt and work with her. And then we found the regional center. We found, tomorrow, Brooklyn's ABA worker, her name is Maddie Francis. She's been the biggest blessing to my family's life. And when she started working with Brooklyn, the amount of changes that occurred were so dynamic, and we saw so many breakthroughs. And Maddie is here because my family owes her so much, and I wanted other people to see how brilliant she was. And I say that to say that you have all these different resources, and just because a child is different doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, that they're not going to lead a full happy life. And as we've seen these changes, her personality has blossomed. She's talking, she's happy, she tells us what she wants, and does she have things that we wish she would be support, she could advocate for herself on a little bit more? Absolutely. But there's no place that she won't get. Now, in typical neurodiversity fashion, I did not script this presentation, but I do want to talk about a couple things. One of the items that through my story I had to realize as I went and processed a lot of this is that there's thoughts, there's fears, and then there's the reality. So I want to touch on it. Thoughts are those organic feelings that you're going to have in your head as a neurodiverse individual. Those things that you think about, well, I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to have to do that, we're going to have to get her in special education, we're going to have to go through all these different processes. It's those sort of the coalescence of everything that goes through. Then there's the fears. The fears are those independent ideas, both as a parent, looking at it as a parent introspectively, but also extrospectively at your child and saying, well, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be a good parent. I'm afraid that my child is not going to have the support that she needs. I'm afraid that the education system isn't going to be able to support her the way she needs. I'm afraid that I'm going to get lost in my hyperfocus. Those are the fears. And those are all natural, by the way. Then there's the reality. Yes, I have a fear about whether the school system can fully support my child in getting her what she needs. The reality is that there's methods and ways and avenues that we could go down. There's resources that we could use to ensure that she's going to be okay. A reality is she's going to be okay. Hyper focus. I'm worried that I'm going to forget to do things with my children. That's my fear. The reality is, every moment I spend with my children, I get hyper focused, but I also have the recognition that they are around me, and there's something different about when you are a parent about that child that makes you have your head on a swivel. And in many circumstances, being the multitaskers many of us seem to be, it actually makes it easier for us to navigate when you have different children going in multiple different directions. So here's some questions. And this is what I learned as I went through. So this is all things I had to process. Are my fears based off of my own experiences? It's great to be able to have the knowledge and recognition of our own lived experience. But we need to know that. Well, not we need. We should try to know that and be aware of that so that we aren't projecting. Which goes to the next question. How can I separate my personal fears from my personal fears from fears for my children? So in this case, how do I separate this? How do I say, okay, well, yes, I'm afraid of this, but that may not be the reality. So can I separate these two things so that I am not projecting, so that I'm not pushing it onto my children? Because children do understand and know. And there have been situations even with my children and they're just turned 5, where they'll be like, Daddy, I'm okay. Daddy, I'm fine. Daddy, I'm good. So can I separate my personal fears from the fears for them? Do I have an outlet, a system, a support system to discuss how I'm feeling? This is a big issue, especially with when you have a spouse and you're going through it, because each spouse tends to have this thought process of, I can't share my feelings with the other because they're not going to understand where I'm coming from. Do I have parents? Do I have friends that I could lean on? What do I have surrounding me so that I'm not stranded onto an island in of itself? Because between being a parent and doing the day-to-day, but also navigating, there's so much going on, yet it does get to be very lonely. And having that outlet is such a high criticality to maintain mental health. Do I have coping strategies I can rely on when feeling flustered? Whenever my daughter gets overstimulated, we put this headset on her that's noise reduction. And I don't think I realized until I saw her going through it that I get the same feeling when there's too much going on around me, when there's too much talking, when there's too many people. I get very flustered. And in the past, my coping mechanism was I would just get frustrated and it would build up that emotion, and I'd either lash out or I'd have to play sports or whatever the case may be. So do I have coping mechanisms that I can rely on when I am feeling like that I can break free of these situations where that focus and that frustration are bubbling up because I don't want to project that or take that out on my kids. So do I have that coping strategies I can rely on? And if I don't, can I find them? Can I find people that can support me and help me learn those? Uh, and do I feel comfortable doing that? Do I have known triggers? And are they avoidable? When we really look at ourselves, when we look at and are self-aware, you know, I'm gonna it's this gonna sound funny, but like I'm from New Jersey. I absolutely hate Hawaiian pizza. I don't think it is pizza. And in the past, that's been a legitimate trigger for me. So in a situation like that, granted, it's a funny, you know, it's a funny example, but can I avoid those triggers and do I know them well enough to avoid them? And if I am avoiding them, is that deflection? Is that avoidance? Or is it a safe uh, and emotionally responsible avoidance? Because there is that difference between avoiding things because we don't need to be around them and avoiding things because we just don't want to deal with them. And it's really a matter of figuring out what that difference is because we don't want to run from things that we need to face, but we do want to be able to say, hey, I'm an adult. I know what works for me and I know what doesn't work for me. And I'm going to ensure that I am in the best position possible. So these are a number of questions. Couple things I always like to talk about, not to question, is your sanity, the power and validity of your lived experience, whether or not you have the right to feel the way that you do, because you do. So often we live in a society where people are, uh, there's this need for validation. There's this need to, we say the things to ourselves like, oh, somebody else has it worse. Well, that's devaluing your own experience. And if you're a parent, whether or not you are neurodiverse, whether or not your child is neurodiverse, you're going to have situations that challenge you. And that's okay. It's okay to feel those emotions, to feel that frustration, to feel that anger, whatever those feelings are in the moment without feeling the need to feel bad about it. Because when we feel bad about it, with society telling us to keep it in, that's just creating this pressurized environment that doesn't allow us to be our best selves. And then it winds up taking on different forms for in different areas of our lives and manifesting itself in a negative way. So the key to it is being aware of that and not feeling like you owe anybody anything and just really being able to say to yourself in the moment, okay, this is real. This is something I am struggling with. This is something that I'm going through. And I'm not going to compare myself to others. I'm going to tackle it moment by moment, inch by inch, until I come to a proper resolution. And that resolution may be just to go to sleep. There's a whole bunch of different capacities that it could be. It doesn't have to be just one. So resources. Uh, one of the things that Catherine McCord asked us for is to provide some resources. This is recent for me. I came across this book called Unlearning Silence by Elaine Lynn Herring. And it's been one of the most instrumental books in my life. And I didn't realize how much I was silenced growing up and even through my adult life until reading that book and looking at it and saying, well, I need to find my voice again. and how much it relates to the neurodiverse experience has absolutely been amazing. I did put the link in for you to find it on Amazon. You could also connect with her. The ADHD Coaching Academy, ADCA, David Gwerk is the head of it. He founded it. They've got some amazing resources. And, you know, at one time, it was my dream to become an ADHD coach. Uh, but that time has passed. Lisa Risher, journeytobloom.com, she helps parents and children figure out the ways to, with the IEPs and the 504 and navigating. Uh, really personalized support for learners. The ADA accommodations, that's the government website. Uh, Neurodiverse friendly staffing agency, Peak Performers, you just heard them before me. So those are a couple of my resources. And then if you're interested in getting to know me, more about my work, hearing me in a more linear thought process, then you could absolutely contact me. LinkedIn is my best platform. There you have the QR code, Instagram, TikTok. I don't really do much with TikTok yet, but within LinkedIn, you can look, and I've posted a tremendous amount of neurodiverse friendly content, as well as resources, guides, and how to advocate for yourself in the neurodiverse and disability space as a job seeker, as a parent, as a human being. I am available for speaking engagements, workshops, or as a consultant. You know, I this talk was different for me. It's the first time I've ever given it. And it's because it's something that I actively am going through. And I think sometimes that we feel like we have to get to the end of a journey before we could speak on it. And that's why you may have heard me being a little bit disjointed in my presentation, because even just talking it through here to all of you now, you realize some of the nuances that are going in and the thought processes and the patterns. And you're self-reflective. There are moments that you think, wow, that was a breakthrough. You know, I'll cap before I stop for questions. Uh, you know, I'll cap this off by saying that my children are my greatest blessing. They're my best friends. Um, they gave me purpose in the world. And it was actually because of them that for the first time I came out on social media and I said, hey, my name's Dan, I'm ADHD. I started talking about this stuff. And that was the most freeing moment of my life, knowing that I had my why, my reason for being, and I wanted to set the right impression for them and the right examples. So I started talking about these things. So if you get anything from today, it's one, you're normal. You have every right to the feelings that you have, but also, and I feel weird saying this because I'm not a woo-woo corny person, no matter the obstacle, there's always that side of it that is manageable with the right mindset. And that doesn't mean that you won't have up days and down days, but there's hope. And I'm not somebody that always felt like there was. My kids gave that to me. And quite frankly, being neurodiverse, being ADHD gave that to me. If I didn't have ADHD, I don't know that I would have found a way out. But here I am. That's my presentation. Wherever Catherine is, she could come back. She could come in, and if you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to. Bulk majority of my speaking engagements are on neurodiversity, but they're also on body dysmorphia, eating disorders, domestic violence, sexual assault. I do a lot of work within the humanities space. That's it. Fun times. I will take whatever I could get. Let's see. If you want to chat, grab a mic. If you want to just hang out, I'm cool with that too. I wish I knew who you were. All it says to me is mystery bot. That's okay. Anyway, if you want to check out my booth, I created sort of a cool video. That was fun. That was a lot of fun to create it. You know what? One thing I should mention, because this is being streamed and recorded. Like, seriously, let's give our props for Catherine. Catherine is actually, people don't know this, Catherine's the person that taught me how to recruit. She's the first person I spoke to, and it was, without her, I wouldn't be here today. You know, she may be a pain in the ass sometimes, but she's my favorite pain in the ass. So I absolutely adore her and am just so thrilled with everything that she's done. And as long as she's doing this, I will be a part of it. I will come and I'll find new and different ways to normalize mental health discussions. Let me unmute this. Okay. That may have been an issue. I might have to re-record this and just do it solid. I don't know. Without Catherine, I really don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I'll sit here. If anybody wants to talk about anything, let me know. Speaking of which, my daughters just had their first day of preschool on Wednesday. Teachers get $50 for the entire year school budget. It's disgusting. You know, I think they're talking about sex in the other room. I think that's what Catherine said. The main one's talking about sex. I have no idea what that has to do with neurodiversity, but I'm curious to find out. Let's try something. Yeah.
Shelly's here somewhere. I don't know where she is.
I'm here. I'm like back around. Hanging out over here.
I came over because I heard that we're playing Let's Talk About
There
Sex,
you are.
Baby.
Hi, Dan.
Let's talk about you and me.
She just stopped.
I was wondering where everybody was, and then I remembered that there was this sex talk.
Yeah, that's what did it. I'll send you the recording of it later if you want to see it. She was so funny.
So, do you hate me? You had to put me on across from the sex talk? Like,
I do not, and you picked that time. I would like to point out.
like, seriously, it's like sex and kids. I mean, it goes together, but still.
It does. Actually, you know what's funny? That's exactly what I thought. I was like, it kind of goes. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, well, it kind of goes. Like, I don't know.
Jesus.
The next talk is Aaron's, but I've got the rest of the recordings. So.
Well, yeah, I have to go hop and get the girls from school.
How are they, by the way?
It's a challenge. They go to 2 separate schools because Brooklyn, with her special education class, they change it every year to whoever has the most room. So it's a lot. But we'll have to catch up. We'll have to have a call at some point because I want to support you and I miss you and and I'm glad you talked to Kathleen. She said that
She's great.
Yeah,
I love her.
Yeah, I told you I have some good people and Maddie's going to be great.
She's super cute.
Yeah. So
what I did learn from this is that next year I'm not going to do 2 stages. I'm going to do 1, and that's just it. That's what I'm going to do next year.
Well, people's first thought was, why am I not on the main stage?
Well, it was in order of who was like whoever picked the spot. That's how I did it. I was like, whoever picked first.
I don't care. I want to sharpen up that talk though, because like it's weird when you give a talk as you're going through something. So, but I definitely may consider making this one of my keynotes. We will see.
You should.
And next time I know I will not be coinciding with the sex talk.
Like I said, next time I'm not gonna do concurrent. I'm just going to do consecutive talks.
So
that was a mistake.
So it was Shelly that did the sex talk?
No, Shelly is doing a tech talk. It was Jessica Raynard who did the sex talk. And I will send it to you. It was fantastic. And it was so funny because before it even started, my friend Lisa that you were helping earlier, she asked questions. And so we started the recording with Jessica answering her questions. And it was so funny. It was really priceless.
Oh,
it was really cute.
My first thought when you told me that was like, what sex and neurodiversity? Like, oh wait, that's just because I'm married. That has nothing to do.
That has nothing to do with neurodiversity. Now, see, you should have been part of this talk because she would have helped. Like, she totally would have helped. But yeah, it was so funny. Like, when she told me her, like, because I know Jessica, and she told me she wanted to do, I was like, hell yeah, this is important. Like, we need to